but yet it's been run by 9 judges. Now, here's the important thing. There are midterm elections this year. November 8th are midterm elections where 435 seats of the House of Representatives are up for challenge, and 35 out of the 100 seats in Senate are up for challenge. Now, abortion is going to be a ballot issue. Why is that? Because the Women's Health Protection Act, which was voted on in 2021, was passed in the House of Representatives, but it was denied, and it failed in the Senate with 46 to 48 votes. And so now this is going to become a ballot issue where, and there's going to be mobilization. They're going to elect more representatives who would be for abortion, because what this act does is it goes a step beyond, what was in under Roe versus Wade to give protection for abortion and women's rights.
Yeah, and you're right, because the media attention this has caught right across the globe. The midterm attentions definitely will be a very important issue. But there's another thing to it. I heard Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and so many others. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he said this is horrific. I heard Melanie Joly, the Foreign Affairs Minister, she said this is a very dark day. I heard all those things. But I'll come back to once again the midterms that you were mentioning, as well as the congressmen or the senators. Okay, fine. But what were you doing all these 50 years, as you just mentioned? The judge clearly said this is not a constitutional right. So it was, yes, they were enjoying the freedom, they were enjoying the right of making a choice because the Supreme Court gave a judgment. But we could have passed the law and enshrined it in the Constitution. For all these 50 years, you were trying to tell everyone else about the human rights. US was dictating, you should have human rights, you should have democracy, you should do this. But you should have made sure that yes, nothing would change forever for women. So I think, I ask you this question, don't you think in a way the leaders have failed the human rights, and particularly, if you want to call it women's rights in this case?
Absolutely, but in the United States, so when it comes to capital punishment, each state gets to have their own laws on whether it's valid. So when it comes to abortion, now that it's, so what a constitutional right is that no law can be made in the entire country that could go against that constitutional right. Now that abortion is not a constitutional right, it's now based on the states. It's not like our system here where you can have a federal law that applies to the provinces and the territory. There, you're still dealing with state by state cases, and which is why I think there's going to be a lot more mobilization when it comes to who are you electing, what are their ideologies, how are they going to vote on issues, because no longer is this a protection that is under the Constitution.
2 points here. I think at the federal level, you need to make constitutional changes on this one, and yes, you could still do that. Because I was looking at, is there a legal recourse for that? Of course not, because Supreme Court, this is the highest court of the land. So there's no legal recourse to it. That's point number one. As much as you could do protest or whatever, but 6-3, I mean, this conservative judge has clearly said this, so there's no legal recourse to the existing thing that we're talking. But what changes can be made? I think at the federal level, the constitutional changes that can be made, that's point number one. And then at the state level as well, and you're right, in the midterms, this will be a discussion how it does play out at the state level.
They need more senators because it failed and passed in the House of Representatives, but they didn't have the number of senates that they needed, right? It was 46 to 48. Now 35 out of the 100 Senate seats are up for midterms. So you can make sure that there's going to be a massive projection and making sure that they're electing the people who think in those terms, or maybe the opposition, who knows, people pro-choice would mobilize as well and make sure that it doesn't change. This is going to be massive.
But there were many instances in the last 50 years where you had the numbers in the Senate and the House both. So that was a perfect time. So now you're doing the sweet talk, but you didn't do something.
They failed their people.
You're caught napping on the wheel right now. I mean, you could say whatever. Maybe even Joe Biden or any of these Democrats didn't really anticipate this was coming. They took it for granted. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in Canada, this is something that's sprung up the conversation here, even when we saw the leaks of the initial ruling and potentially it being overturned. We started talking about that here. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is looking at putting in, because even in Canada, we don't have federal law that protects it. Again, with us, it's also a constitutional right based on the Morgentaler case. And so this is something that the federal government is now trying to push forward, but then they're in a minority government. If they're backed by, enough MPs, then maybe perhaps it's something that they can do. Let's see. This is, and then this is just the first case, because now there's been more leaks where the justices are looking at same-sex marriages. They're looking at a few different things based on social issues.